Hi, I'm Christine and welcome back to my sewing studio. Today I'll be doing a sew with me on Simplicity number 8641. It's a women's jumper dress that's got straps that cross in the back. Now there are 4 different views on this, A, B, C, and D. And it actually took me quite a while to figure out what the difference was because you can't really tell in the pictures here. Once you open up the pattern though, you can see view A and D on the bib that they call it. It kind of arches up where the straps are, and views C and D, no, I'm sorry, B and C, the bib goes straight across. That's the one I wanted to do is view B. And then the skirts are all different also. View A and B actually have a side zipper, which is what we'll be doing, and view C and D do not have a zipper. Okay, so today we'll be doing bodice B, and the skirt will be view A. So what you'll need today is obviously the pattern, Simplicity 8641. You'll need some scissors. I use my rotary cutter because these are really long pieces that you'll have to cut. Make sure you've got your cutting mat also. You'll need a 9-inch zipper for the view A and B. I'm not sure how C and D will work without the zipper, but today we'll be using the zipper. Obviously you'll need some thread, you'll need some fabric markers, a seam ripper, since we will be doing a zipper, and a tape measure for the pattern pieces that need to be laid out by the grain. This pattern calls, the different types of fabric it calls for is cotton types, lightweight denim, linen, flannel. We are actually using flannel today. And then of course, the pattern pieces for our views that we're working with, it is piece number 1 through 4 and then 7 through 14. So there are a lot of pattern pieces on this. Piece number 11, 13, and 14 are all cut on the fold. And then the rest of the pieces are cut based on the grain line. Piece number 3 and 14 only get cut out in the interfacing. It doesn't actually say it on your piece, which is why I cut it out with fabric as well. But it is just interfacing. It is called pocket interfacing. I should have gotten that clue. So my fabric today is a black and white buffalo check. I laid out the grain line basically right along the checks. So in the pieces that I needed to cut 2 out of, I cut them out 1 at a time. A lot of time when I fold over the fabric to cut 2 pieces, my lines don't match up perfectly. So I cut out 2 pieces separately at separate times. If you do that, make sure you flip your pattern piece over. So I cut out the first piece like this, and then I flip it over, cut out the second piece. So that way you don't have 2 of the same pieces. Make sure you cut out all the triangles along the edges and make note of all the little dots that are along the pattern pieces. The first part of step number 1 is to apply the interfacing, which is number 3, piece number 3, pocket interfacing, to the pocket number 2. So this is piece number 2. The interfacing actually fits perfectly right along the curved edge there. And then I've got it on this side as well. Now what you're going to do is pin both pocket facings to the front of your skirt, which is piece number 1. You're matching them up along the edges here. They each have a little notch. And then what you're going to do is sew this part of the pockets onto the skirt. Step number 2 says to understitch the facing. Basically what that means is you've got your facing, which is your piece number 2, sewn up against your skirt like this. You're going to take it, fold out the seam allowance, iron this down so it's separated like that, and you're just going to sew along piece number 2 where you're sewing down the seam allowance. So it looks like this, if you can see that. So here's piece number 1, piece number 2. 2 is out here, seam allowance is folded over onto piece number 2, and you're sewing along the edge, basically sewing along the seam allowance. You do that on both sides, and then it says to turn facing inside and press. So you're basically just turning piece number 2 to the inside of piece number 1, like this, and you're pressing down along the seam. Okay, so I have pressed my piece number 2s onto piece number 1, so, or along the back, so that the seam is nice and crisp. One thing I forgot to mention, when you are sewing, when you're understitching piece number 2, make sure you keep separating your fabric while you're going. Since it's on a curve, some of the fabric tends to get bunched up, and you don't want to accidentally sew through piece number 1. Okay, so I know I mentioned we're doing view A. What's so confusing is the only difference between view A and view B is there is some top stitching along the pockets here. So I actually think I'm doing view B, only because since this is flannel, I don't think I'm going to do a top stitch, but if you've got a denim or even a linen possibly, and you want view A, basically all it is you will be top stitching about 1/4 of an inch along both pocket edges. So that is step number 3. For step number 4, you're going to take piece number 4, which is the front yoke and pocket. Put them right sides together, so right sides to right sides, up against piece number 2. So I don't know if you can see it because it's all white now, but here's my piece number 4. Along this curved edge, there are 2 notches that were cut. So you'll want to just make sure you match up the notches. Piece number 4 will then overlap and be sticking out farther than the pocket. The pocket ends right here. Piece number 4 will come over like that. You're going to pin it along the curved side, which is the notched side, the double notched side, and then just sew along the double notched side on both sides. Okay, so I have sewn my piece number 4 to piece number 2 along the double notched edge. Now you're going to take it and put piece number 2 behind piece number 1 again. Make sure you lay it flat. Make sure the pocket is flat behind piece number 1, and you've got piece number 4 sticking out here. You're going to baste it. You're going to baste piece number 1 to piece number 4 along the edges here, right here, and then right along the top, so they stay together. There are a couple of notches on the bottom part, so you'll know you've got it matched up correctly. So just baste it right here and right here on either side. Sorry, I forgot to mention that basting is basically where you set your machine at the highest length stitch possible. Mine's a 7. I'm not sure if that's the same for every machine, but it makes a longer stitch, so later on you're able to remove it if you can actually see it. Usually you can't see it in the end, but after you've sewn it, after you've sewn the skirt together, if you can see the basting stitch, it's easy to pull out. Also, I know I have this up on my mannequin, but when I laid this out, I did lay it out on a flat surface. I wanted to make sure the pockets were completely flat in there so that there's no gapping. It looks like it here, but hopefully it's not. So, I don't know. I'm actually really excited. This is looking really cute. Okay, step number 6 has to do with the band front, which is piece number 7. Now it says to take the unnotched edge and to, they say press under 5/8 inch. So you're basically just folding it over 5/8 of an inch all along the edge and pressing it down. I went ahead and serged the edge, but of course you don't need to do that. Also make sure you I went ahead and measured 5/8 of an inch all the way down, because what I think is going to end up happening is this is going to go like this. We're going to have the bib over it, and then the bib's going to go up, and this is going to go up. And you're going to have this edge here that you're going to sew along. So you'll want to make sure it's fairly even for when you top stitch it, I believe we're going to be doing. I don't know. These instructions have been a little confusing, and I read through them in the beginning to try to picture what we're going to be doing, and some of these don't make a whole lot of sense until I start doing them. So go ahead and take your band number 7, fold it over 5/8 of an inch. I went ahead and pinned it and then iron it, and it says to then trim it down to 3/8 of an inch. I don't usually do that. I always end up trimming it too short, so I'm just keeping it at 5/8 of an inch. The second part of step 6 is to take your band number 7 that you've just folded over, put it right side to right side along the top edge of your skirt, match up the 2 triangles up here on the top, and pin it along the top of your skirt and baste it. I've gone ahead and pinned piece number 7 to piece number 1 along the top, and I basted it across the top here. And now step number 7 has to do with the bib. So depending on your style or view that you want, you'll either have pattern number 5 or 13. This is number 13 because it's straight across. Number 5 kind of is on, it's almost like a slight U in the top. And then you're gonna take the interfacing, which is either piece number 6 or 14, and apply it to the back of the bib. So you can see along the edges here. So go ahead and iron that on. Step number 8 is you're going to take your bib with the right side, place it right up against your skirt where you've just sewn on your band 7, and you're going to match up the center pieces, and you're going to stitch along the top. So you've got the right side of the skirt, you've got the wrong side of band 7, and the right side of your bib, and you're going to stitch all along the top there. Now you've got a lot of different layers going on here. After I had basted my piece number 4 to piece number 1, there are a couple different levels on the top there. When you pin your bib along the top and you sew along the top, make sure you follow the bib line. You can see I've got different levels here, and so you want to make sure this is straight across. So I'm going to follow my bib, which I know I've cut completely straight, as I'm sewing along the top here. I'm going to run my pressure foot following the top of the bib. That way I can make sure I have got a straight seam across. Okay, I have sewn the bib to piece number 1, and I went ahead and serged the top seam. One thing I noticed, my pocket actually got folded over. So as I was sewing this top stitch here, it got folded over, so the pocket wasn't laying flat. So I undid it, I went to serge it, and as I'm serging, I did it again. So, you know, sometimes I wonder, what am I thinking about while I'm sewing? Apparently not sewing. So I had to re-serge it, lay it flat, because I was scared if it's sticking out like this, that it will probably stick out in the front too. You'll be able to see it. So just make sure your pockets are flat. Pay attention as you're sewing. And so now we've got the bib pinned or sewn to the top, to the skirt. Step number 9 says to press the band, bib, and seam out. Basically all that means is to turn up the bib now. So you've got the bib onto your skirt, press up the band. Okay, so I'm going to pin this up here so I can show you. You're going to want to iron the band out flat, and then along the top of the band, top stitch along the band. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, but it's a lot later than when I started doing this. Basically what happened is, now I know that these stripes don't line up, the checks don't line up, and I'm okay with that. I actually like that. I don't want them all lined up. However, I did want the band to look straight. I want the stripes going this way to be pretty much as straight as I can get. Well, that did not happen. So I sew it on, I serge it, I even serge the seam together, which I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but I will baste everything. I baste it, I try it on, or I make sure it looks okay, I make sure the pleats look okay, the bunching looks okay. I baste everything first. Why did I serge it? Mental note, don't serge it until you know what the heck it actually looks like. I serged it, I put it up here, and it was all over the place. So as Tim Gunn in Project Runway likes to say, it was a make it work moment for me. And in order to make it work, I had to take out everything. All of my serging, all of my seams for the band, the shirt or the bib, the skirt, and I basically relayed it out. I laid out the band, and now there's thread everywhere. I laid out the band running along the check, the line, which it looks pretty darn straight. Made sure when I lifted it up, it still looked pretty darn straight, which there are certain areas, but at this point, I'm not gonna worry about it. So right now, I actually have a margarita. My husband made me a margarita. It's Saturday night. I'm going to call it quits for the night, and I will see you in the morning.